Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming today to talk about the Valley Line East. I'm Jeffrey Driscoll with Communications in the City of Edmonton. I'm going to help us get through today and moderate a little bit. With us, of course, is Mayor Amarjeet Sohi, City Manager Andre Corbould, and Deputy City Manager Adam Laughlin. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to hear from both the Mayor and the City Manager first. Then we're going to open it up for questions. We are in a bit of a tight timeline today, so we're going to try our best to get one question, one follow-up for every outlet, and then, or for everyone who wants to ask a question. And then if there's some time left, we'll try to open it up for some further questions again, only if there's time. Since we're all in the room, we'll do it old school, and I'll point to people, and then we can ask the question and go for a follow-up after that. I think that's all I've got. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here on Treaty 6 territory. I am going to be very frank with you. Today is a frustrating, disappointing, and sad day for Edmontonians. I was hoping to be sharing news of the Valley Line Southeast LRT opening this summer. But as you have heard, Transed has told us that it's being delayed once again, and this time we don't know for how long. Transed, as a public-private partnership, has not delivered this project as expected. They are responsible for this delay, and they will be held accountable to get the work completed and open the line that is safe to ride. I know that this news is going to make many of you angry. As a strong advocate for accessible and safe public transit, and as your mayor, I hear you and I share your anger. This project has been near and dear to my heart, and it came to fruition after I put forward a motion in 2008 to build this line to connect Millwoods to downtown core. So this work started in 2008. It was scheduled to be completed in December of 2020. And it is now August 2022, and we are still waiting. It is frustrating and deeply disappointing. Many of us should have been able to take the LRT to Folkfest last weekend. I heard this time and time again from Edmontonians at the festival, and I hope to be able to take it with you. We also need to acknowledge that the lack of oversight that city has on P3 projects. These projects lack transparency, reducing city administration oversight and accountability. When we are talking about public money and public infrastructure, transparency and accountability is essential. To that effect, I call upon our administration to undertake a comprehensive review of how we build large projects, particularly the P3 procurement process. In the meantime, we must ensure that we are undertaking a rigorous analysis before we support any new P3 projects. Edmontonians expect that infrastructure projects be delivered on time and on budget. As your mayor, I promise you that I'm going to work hard and do my utmost best that the project your new city council approves will be completed on time and on budget. While today's news is disappointing, I look forward to the day when I can stand before you with good news about this project. And I assure you that when we do open this line, we will make sure that it is safe, as the safety of Edmontonians is my top priority. I will now invite City Manager Andre Corbould up to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. So TransEd has told City Council administration at Edmontonians that the Valley Line Southeast LRT is delayed again. City administration is deeply disappointed about the new delay by TransEd, and as city manager, I share in this ongoing frustration. But we will not let the disappointment take us off our final course. We are committed to bringing a safe and reliable LRT service to Edmontonians, and we are going to hold TransEd accountable to fix this problem, and they will not be paid money until the problem is fixed and they are running on schedule and on service. On behalf of taxpayers, we bought a product, an LRT line to move thousands of people around their city. To qualify for federal assistance for the project was done as a public-private partnership, a P3. This P3 is a long-term contract between the city and the companies which are building and running the Valley Line Southeast. We buy a product, we don't design it, we don't engineer it, and we don't build it ourselves. Specialists do that, and they must meet the requirements of engineering and safety regulatory bodies. This approach does share the risk among the contracting parties, and it provides a longer warranty on what is built. And at the time the contract was signed, it was expected to save more than $500 million compared to doing this project in a different delivery model. The financial consequences of this delay and earlier delays is being paid by TransEd, not by Edmontonians, because we have a fixed price contract which protects those expected savings. Even so, we still expected the LRT line to be delivered on time, and we expect it to be safe, and these delays are not acceptable. The city is committed to a safety on public transit. We have taken several measures to deal with safety of people throughout the system, countless actions on buses and LRT stations, in pedways and in transit centers to make sure passengers and staff are safe in our public places. That commitment to safety applies right across our current system and to our future LRT lines and the supporting infrastructure as well. Recently, TransEd identified these safety issues. They identified them based on city inspectors pointing out the cracks and these problems with the concrete piers that support the elevated guideways. Under the terms of the P3, this deficiency is TransEd's responsibility. Of course, we as a community are the ones who get disadvantaged. The delay is a significant inconvenience to passengers and people of Edmonton who should have been enjoying the Valley Line Southeast from Millwoods to downtown by now. The city will continue to provide frequent bus service in place of the LRT line so people can still move around their city. Even with this difficult news, we look forward to the day when Edmontonians can ride the new LRT line they have paid for, and when TransEd has made the repairs and the system has been deemed safe, the city will adjust service and operations to get LRT moving as quickly as possible. We expect TransEd to make this right and have the line open for safe, reliable service as soon as possible. We know that Edmontonians deserve better. The mayor has called for a review of how we work on large projects. That work will begin right away, and we will update council and the public as it proceeds, with the view to having a positive impact on how we deliver the next leg of the LRT to the west of the city. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions you have. We also have Adam Laughlin, our Deputy City Manager of Integrated Infrastructure Services, who can answer questions as well. Thank you.
So I think I'll just go down my list if that's all right with you folks. So we've got city news here. Laura, do you want to ask a question at all?
Sure. So I know that the West Line is contracted out by other people. Do you expect delays with that line kind of similar to what we're seeing on this one here?
So it is a slightly different contract, and many of the lessons learned have already been incorporated into that. As the mayor indicated, we are going to do a review of how we monitor these P3 projects. And when we look at the issues we've had with the Southeast LRT, we're looking at them very specifically with a view to learning lessons and doing better on the West LRT. So we will anticipate these things. We will mitigate them and try to avoid them so that we don't see the same issues we've had with TransEd on the Southeast LRT.
Yeah, so you're saying that you're calling for review on how the city works on other big projects. Does that play a role on council's decision on the gondola project, for example?
Well, gondola project is a private sector project, designed by private sector, funded by private sector, built by private sector. It would not involve any public dollars. Public is not going to own this infrastructure if it's approved by council. So it's more of a regulatory role on part of the council. It has nothing to do with any of the construction or timelines. This is a completely different project.
So we'll just keep going down the list. I've got Global next. Is that Dan or Brianna? Dan? What about here?
I guess either for the mayor or Andre, you mentioned accountability, but also being kind of handcuffed by the deal. So because this is like the fourth delay though, so what does accountability look like after this specific delay?
First of all, the accountability is within the contract that has been signed with the Transit. They are responsible for all the cost overruns if there are any. The city is not on the hook beyond what we agreed on, which is fixed price of $1.8 billion. So that's one accountability. Another accountability is that every day the line is not open, Transit is losing the money that city would have been paid. City would have paid them to run that. So that's another accountability. But that is no consolation to the people who have been waiting for this LRT for about 30 years, right? It was in 1970s when we first talked about building the LRT from downtown to Millwoods, connecting that part of the city. We are in 2022 now. So I really want to stress this point to listening to everyone, that we will do what we can in our capacity to have this line built as quickly as possible in the safest way that people can get on that train to come downtown. And we're going to continue to hold Transit accountable for their part of the bargain, because we are living to our part of the bargain.
Yeah, just to follow up, it's I guess more of a big picture question. You know, you said Edmontonians expect projects to be on time and on budget, but yet it seems like we come here project after project to talk about delays, about, you know, LRT, the Walterdale Bridge going back. I mean, do you actually think Edmontonians can anticipate projects being on time and on budget? Can we keep having these delays? And is the city developing a reputation for not being able to do that?
You know, I would say that the projects that our administration has a direct control of monitoring and delivering, the last we checked, I think 98% of those projects are on budget. I think more than 80% of those are on schedule. So we do have a good track record of delivering projects on time, on budget. But we absolutely need to do more, and that is why the review that I have asked for will identify some of those deficiencies and what had gone wrong in this case. And because this is a P3 project, there is very little control on behalf of this from the city on the project, in a way that we are not responsible for construction. We have, we are buying a product, as Andre has mentioned, but to deliver that project, the private sector, Transit in this case, the consortium of P3 partners, is their responsibility to deliver, and they have not delivered that project. But I assure you that moving forward, we're going to work very closely with the administration and private sector to look at best practices out in the marketplace to ensure that the P3 project or city-led projects are completed on time, and that we're building on the administration's success of delivering the projects they're responsible for on time.
I've got CBC next, Natasha.
Hi.
Hi.
Adam, I think I'd like to ask you a technical question without getting too much in the weeds. But for lay people, I think a lot of us want to know how did this happen at this point in the project? How do you get this far in a project and then discover this kind of problem?
Well, I think that's an important, thanks for the question, that's an important part of going through a robust commissioning phase, is to ensure that you discover issues before you go into full operations. Again, it's a question for Transit. The mayor and Andre both commented that this type of project, and many of our projects, the responsibilities are transferred to the proponent to complete the structural engineering, complete the design, complete the construction, and make sure that it's meeting the requirements of the intended use. So again, it's back to a responsibility of TransEd to make sure that that's happening. But I would point to, for these large civil projects, having a robust commissioning process as a measure to ensure that we are getting what we purchased before going into operation. I think TransEd identified that the cause they believe at this point is a result of thermal expansion of the rail, and not getting too technical like you asked, but
I think that's going to be on people's minds. Like, how do you get this far into a project and find that, right?
Yeah, and that is why we go through that robust commissioning process to ensure that we capture any of those unforeseens, which do happen on large civil infrastructure projects.
And just give me your gut instinct. What is your sense of when this problem might be resolved and the train could open?
Too early to say, because the detailed root cause analysis, the development of the design solutions to address the issues that have been discovered, and the implementation of those are all concurrently happening and underway. But until we get to that point of what is the root cause, the confirmation of the root cause, the design solution, and the implementation timeframe.
Like, are we talking months?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Like your engineering knowledge of this type of issue, are we talking months?
Yeah, I think at this point too early to say, but from our perspective, they are significant repairs, and so that's at this point the most that I could provide.
Thank you. We've got CTV next. I think I've got Allison. I see Jeremy back there too. Allison?
I don't know who this would be best for, but can you talk a little bit about the transparency between the two parties and when you heard, and you're saying that the city actually discovered these cracks first, so can you just go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, so mid-July, as part of normal process, part of the city team identified some cracks in these locations, alerted TransEd. TransEd took action and started assessing those. That was mid to end of July, and started assessing the impact. Last week, we were informed by TransEd that the impact is significant and it requires significant repairs, which they articulated at their press conference today. So in what we'd like to see in our construction projects, a spirit of partnership, the city team discovered that there was cracks. TransEd jumped in, assessed those cracks, and then it wasn't until last week that we were informed by TransEd that there was this significant issue. So that's certainly in a public sector project that is as transparent as we can be in terms of the timeframes of discovering these issues.
So I just, you're talking about this review of large projects and how they're built. I seem to recall within the last 10 years there has already been one of those reviews. I don't remember what the impetus for it was, if it was the Metro Line or the 102 Ave Bridge or the Walterdale Bridge. But I guess I'm just wondering, what else is there? What is left to learn about these big projects, and to what extent is this just sort of bad luck with TransEd?
Yeah, I don't think it's bad luck. I think there's an accountability here, and we've got that's why I talk about specialists who do this work and who are accountable to do this work. And we went out and bought and found some of the best specialists we could to do this work. So it's not about luck. It's about, I think, competence and expertise. And you're right, Jeremy, there have been reviews of infrastructure projects. Those reviews have improved performance over the last several years, and we've seen that in our numbers in terms of what the mayor identified. But that doesn't mean there's not more room for improvement, and we will continuously strive to do better. I think in this particular case, it is a big P3. It is a big LRT P3, and with the West LRT coming up, I think we have to take the opportunity to dig into it again. And make sure that we can mitigate these issues on the next step. And we'll always do that in the city. We'll always learn and try to strive to do better. That's what the expectation is, and it should be.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to say that?
Yeah. So as Andre mentioned, the previous reviews have led us to improve the process of delivering projects on time, on budget. This is the largest infrastructure projects that city has undertaken in partnership with the private sector. So this is the first P3 projects that we have undertaken in recent memory. I don't remember any other P3 project of this significant that we have ever built. So I think the comprehensive review will allow us to learn some of the mistakes from the mistakes and build on those by improving some of the process on the P3 procurement process. So that I think that is very important that we undertake the review in that context. Yeah.
Thank you. The last on my list here is post-meeting.
When are you expecting to hear another update from Transit? Because at this point, we're just in limbo with, we don't know when this project is going to be completed at this point, and fair enough that they need to do more work to determine that, but have you had any communication from them on when they will have another update?
We're in daily conversations with Transed on this, have been throughout the project, but even more so when these issues were discovered. Active work is underway, as I say, on the root cause, the design solutions, and the implementation approaches. They do need the time to work through that. And so I again, it's a question that Transed does need to answer, but I would think that that work will be resulting in outcomes that we could be looking at within 2 weeks to a month, having more detail. But again, that's something that we need to rely on the proponent that is responsible for addressing the issues, which is Transed.
Maybe, Mayor, if I could get you to answer that as well. How important is it for Edmontonians? How important is it for Edmontonians to have a clear idea of when they can expect to see this done now that we've had another delay?
No, my expectation was that this project would have been completed by December 2020. But unforeseen things happened related to COVID, and our unforeseen things happened because of the discovery of some of the concrete slabs in the North Saskatchewan River. But the recent defects that our city folks have noticed, I firmly believe that we will dig deeper into the root causes, and Transed needs to be held accountable, because that is a basic engineering design that companies have been doing for decades and decades. So obviously, as part of our process to hold Transed accountable on this project, we will dig deeper into that. As far as the certainty on the opening date, I hope that Transed will be able to come back to us quickly on what they're going to do to fix those deficiencies, and fix them in a permanent way, that we have a safe system to rely on. But at this time, it's difficult to give that definitive date for the opening. Yeah. Yeah.
So don't have a whole lot of time left, but what we're going to do is two things. We're going to go Radio Canada. We'll do a question, then we'll go to Brianne from Global. But please, Natasha, go first.
Sir Andre, nos amis à Radio-Canada veulent une réponse en français. Donc,
oui.
Oui.
Je vais juste dire qu'on est très désolé avec les résultats et le fait qu'on a un autre délai avec la complétion de ce projet. Et comme j'ai dit en anglais, il va y avoir une bonne accountabilité pour les délais, et on va travailler très fort avec Transed pour être sûr qu'on a un way ahead, un chemin pour qu'on peut ouvrir le LRT le plus vite possible et dans une manière très sécuritaire.
under the long stop agreement since the end of February. I wonder which of those you've taken advantage of, and if you haven't, why you haven't taken advantage of them above and beyond the penalties which you've been able to charge since before that.
It's in terms of the long stop date, we've utilized that to assess our opportunities from a legal perspective related to the long-term merits of this contract. Beyond that, I can't really say because it is under legal privilege. But as the mayor said, I think one of the biggest drivers around accountability is that TransEd is responsible for these costs, and they are significant. And so under this model, that lies with them, where under a different model, it would be something that potentially the city would have to bear. So I think that is an element of this project that I think Edmontonians can take comfort in, and that this isn't a cost that's coming to the taxpayers, additional cost coming to the taxpayers, that it is directly on TransEd.
So you've explored legal action against TransEd?
We regularly explore and will continue to explore.
Okay, thanks. I think that's going to be it for today. If you need a clarification, you can go through one of our offices and we can get you a clarification. Thanks everybody for coming today. Thanks, Alex.